The Harper mansion glittered under warm lights, but Amelia felt a cold pulse under her skin. She stood among strangers calling themselves family, trying to steady her breath. Laughter crashed against her ears like something rehearsed and dishonest. Then she saw Ethan signing a receipt for a $230,000 transfer. Her inheritance, signed away without a word to her. The room tilted, and her heartbeat thudded like a warning siren. She stepped closer, demanding an explanation that never came. Paul's smile sharpened into something violent and familiar. He pulled her aside and hissed threats she'd heard all her life. His fist landed on her shoulder before she could inhale. Guests kept laughing, unaware or unwilling to notice. Amelia straightened, eyes wide but unbroken. Because her watch was recording every second he thought he owned. Amelia drove home in silence, gripping the wheel until her knuckles turned white. The night outside looked calm, but her mind spun like a broken compass. She replayed Paul's punch again and again, each loop sharpening her focus. Pain was no longer a shock. It was a signal. A boundary finally crossed. She parked in front of her apartment and sat motionless for a full minute. Then she walked inside, locked the door, and turned on her laptop. The familiar glow of the screen steadied her breathing. Numbers always made sense, even when people didn't. She opened the folder she had avoided for years. Inside it was a file named Ledger, XLS, color-coded and painfully organized. 6 years of transfers. 6 years of rent payments. 6 years of quiet rescues she never demanded thanks for. Nearly $50,000 given to patch holes she never created. Each row of the spreadsheet felt like a small betrayal she had swallowed. She scrolled through timestamps and notes she typed on nights she cried alone. Her chest tightened, but her resolve grew heavier and sharper. She moved to her email archives, typing keywords she barely remembered. Old messages loaded slowly, like ghosts returning with receipts. Then she found it. A draft attachment from her grandmother's lawyer, dated 7 years earlier. Her hands trembled as she clicked it open. A digital will. A clear clause stating the estate must be split evenly between Amelia and Ethan. Her name was right there, spelled correctly, impossible to mistake. The signature block glowed with a verified digital certificate. It felt like sunlight cutting through a locked room. She leaned back, exhaling a breath she didn't know she held. Paul had lied. Not by accident. Not by confusion. But by design. He had suppressed the original terms and funneled everything to Ethan. He had counted on her silence, her guilt, her history of stepping aside. He thought she would swallow injustice the same way she always had. Amelia closed the document slowly, letting the truth settle without panic. The evidence was real. The timeline was clear. The motive was obvious. She opened a blank notebook and titled the first page, Family Audit. Her handwriting looked steadier than she felt. She listed the categories she knew from her job. Documentation. Testimony. Financial trail. She checked the first box without hesitation. She checked the second, knowing the recording on her watch captured everything. Only the third remained unfinished. The missing link between the crime and the cover-up. Her pulse slowed as she formulated the next steps. This was no longer a family dispute. This was a case. And she had handled harder cases for strangers who mattered less. She saved all files into a new encrypted folder. Then she backed them up onto a USB she kept for emergencies. Her apartment felt colder, but her path felt unmistakably clear. She whispered to no one as she shut off the light. This time, I'm not letting them rewrite the truth. Amelia returned to the Harper house the next afternoon with a steady breath and a recording watch. The sky was gray, but her thoughts were sharper than the cold air around her. She walked up the porch, rehearsing nothing, letting silence be her armor. Paul opened the door with a scowl, as if her presence were an inconvenience he owned. He asked why she was back, his tone dripping with practiced authority. She didn't answer. She just stepped inside and closed the door behind her with a soft click. The living room was unchanged, still carrying the scent of last night's party. Ethan's laughter seemed to echo faintly in her memory. Paul towered behind her, demanding she speak. She remained still, letting the recorder capture every vibration in his voice. He moved closer, irritated by her calm. He accused her of stirring trouble, of misunderstanding money that wasn't hers. She watched his lips shape each lie with mechanical confidence. Her silence agitated him faster than words ever could. He stepped forward until he stood inches from her face. His breath was warm and hostile. He poked her shoulder, then shoved harder when she didn't react. She stumbled back into the hallway wall, but kept her expression neutral. The watch caught the thud, the hiss, the ugly rhythm of his temper. He accused her again, louder, angrier, claiming she owed the family obedience. Her pulse thumped quietly, but her face stayed blank. She had heard these lines her entire life. He reached for her arm, gripping it too tightly, and pushed her toward the bookshelf. Her back hit the edge, sending a dull ache through her spine. Books shifted and fell, scattering across the floor at their feet. The recorder captured everything. The crash, the grunt he let out, the scrape of her shoes. Amelia inhaled slowly, steadying her breath so the audio wouldn't shake. Paul barked at her to leave the house and forget last night's nonsense. He told her no one would believe her. He told her she had nothing. She knelt down as if to pick up the fallen books. But her eyes were on the lower cabinet beside the shelf. The USB drive should have been there. Her fingers slid along the wood until she felt the familiar ridge of the small metal device. She palmed it in one motion, concealing it under the cover of gathering the books. Paul paced with restless anger, still lecturing about loyalty and gratitude. She nodded once, pretending submission, letting him believe she was retreating. She stood, dusted her hands, and walked toward the door with measured steps. Her heart beat harder now, not from fear but from clarity. She opened the door and stepped outside, the cold air hitting her like a reset. Paul shouted something behind her, but she didn't turn around. The recording had captured more than she expected, and the USB in her pocket felt like a quiet victory. She walked to her car, unlocked it, and sat inside with shaking hands. Then she smiled, faint but real, as she pressed stop on the recording. The second pillar of evidence was complete. Amelia returned home, with the USB hidden safely in her coat pocket. Her apartment felt quieter than it had in years. She placed the drive on the desk and opened her notebook titled Family Audit. She reviewed the evidence she had so far, each piece forming a clearer picture. The first pillar was complete, the signed digital will confirming her rightful inheritance. The second pillar was secure, audio proof of Paul's assault and threats. The third pillar remained unfinished, financial proof linking the money to Ethan. She tapped her pen against the desk, thinking through every transaction she remembered. Her work as a corporate auditor had taught her to follow the money with precision. Emails, bank statements, memos, every note could serve as a breadcrumb trail. She opened her encrypted spreadsheet again, cross-referencing 6 years of support payments. The amounts were modest compared to the massive inheritance stolen, but patterns emerged. She marked entries where transfers went directly to Ethan, noting dates and amounts. Her pulse quickened with a mix of anger and determination. She drafted a timeline, linking each payment to Paul's actions and conversations. Then she returned to the digital will, comparing timestamps to the bank transfers. The alignment was perfect. Paul had diverted money intentionally after the will was drafted. She leaned back and let the logic settle in her mind like steel. This was no accident. This was a deliberate scheme. Amelia opened her law reference books, scanning statutes for inheritance interference. She highlighted key clauses that Paul could be liable for. The law was on her side, if she presented the evidence correctly. She sketched a flowchart connecting the 3 pillars: document, testimony, and financial proof. Each node strengthened the other, creating an unbroken chain of accountability. She knew she needed to act carefully to preserve the integrity of the evidence. Any misstep could let Paul rewrite the story again. Amelia copied the audio onto a separate secure drive, labeling it with timestamps. She printed a color copy of the digital will, showing the verified signature certificate. Every detail mattered: the exact time, date, and context of every action. She reviewed her notes again, ensuring nothing was overlooked. Then she created a secure folder for financial documents she would need next. Amelia made a list of banks, accounts, and transactions to verify the missing link. She mapped out a step-by-step approach to gather the 3rd pillar without alerting Paul. Every move had to be calculated, precise, and legally defensible. She opened her laptop, setting reminders for follow-up actions. Her focus sharpened, transforming frustration into a professional mission. Amelia whispered to herself, almost like a mantra, 3 pillars, 1 truth, no shortcuts. The room felt colder now, but clarity burned inside her. She knew that once the 3rd pillar was in place, the case would be unstoppable. Her role was no longer just a daughter. She was investigator, auditor, and strategist rolled into one. Amelia shut down the lights, leaving the evidence organized and ready. Tomorrow, she would begin the final phase of the investigation. The family's secrets would no longer be hidden, and the law would be her instrument of justice. Amelia scheduled a meeting with her attorney, Marcus Hale, first thing Monday morning. She arrived early, carrying only her laptop and the USB drive. Marcus greeted her with a firm handshake and a raised eyebrow. She handed him the encrypted folder and watched as he unpacked the evidence. His eyes scanned the files quickly, lingering on the audio first. "This is strong," he said, nodding slowly. "You have the digital will, verified, and the assault recording. Perfect. But," he added, tapping the table, "you still need financial proof connecting the inheritance to Ethan." Amelia had anticipated this. She opened a spreadsheet on her laptop, showing him transfers, dates, and memos. Marcus leaned closer, adjusting his glasses, reading every line carefully. "Look here." Amelia pointed to a $230,000 transfer from Paul and their mother's joint account. The memo line clearly read, "Ethan inheritance payment." Marcus's lips pressed into a thin line, impressed but cautious. "This is exactly what we need," he said. "Now we get confirmation from the bank, official statements, and we have the 3rd pillar." Amelia made a note, already calculating her next steps. The two drafted a precise plan to secure the bank records without alerting Paul or Ethan. Amelia visited the local branch first thing the next day, asking politely for transaction verification. The clerk smiled, assuming it was routine business. She obtained official confirmations with memo details and exact amounts. Back at Marcus's office, Amelia handed him the signed bank statements. He placed them next to the will and the audio files. 3 pillars aligned perfectly, forming an airtight chain of evidence. Marcus paused, letting the moment sink in. "This is the point where you can move from investigation to action," he said. Amelia's pulse quickened, but her expression remained calm. She had anticipated every step, every obstacle, and every lie Paul might tell. Marcus drafted letters to the court, requesting asset freezes and a formal accounting of the estate. Amelia reviewed each line carefully, confirming accuracy and legal grounding. Together, they listed assets, bank accounts, and properties that could be immediately frozen. She even collected social media evidence showing Ethan's new car and apartment lease. Marcus smiled faintly at her thoroughness. "You've thought of everything," he said. Amelia nodded, her focus unwavering. They prepared a formal complaint demanding restitution of her rightful share. Marcus printed all documents, double-checked every timestamp and signature. Amelia copied everything onto 2 encrypted drives as a backup. They scheduled the filing for early next week, ensuring court documents would be officially recorded. Marcus reminded her to avoid direct contact with Paul or Ethan. "Let the law do the work now," he advised. Amelia agreed silently, feeling a mixture of relief and anticipation. The third pillar was no longer missing. The evidence was complete. The case could move forward without risk of manipulation. As she left Marcus's office, she felt a quiet determination settle over her. The family's deception was fully exposed, and justice was within reach. No more uncertainty. No more silence. She would see this through, step by step, using nothing but facts, law, and precision. The audit of her family was finally operational. Amelia woke early, her mind sharp and focused on the next steps. She reviewed all 3 pillars one last time before leaving her apartment. The digital will, the audio recording, and the bank statements were all secure. Marcus had filed the initial motions with the court yesterday. Today, she would provide additional evidence to strengthen the case. She gathered screenshots from Ethan's social media accounts showing his new Mustang. She printed photos of the lease agreement for his downtown apartment. Each piece illustrated how he had benefited from the misappropriated inheritance. Amelia checked the file for duplicates, ensuring nothing could be questioned in court. She emailed Marcus with a secure attachment containing all new evidence. Marcus replied almost immediately, confirming the documents were perfect for submission. The next motion requested the court freeze all assets associated with Paul and Ethan. It also demanded a full accounting of every transfer over the past 7 years. Marcus called Paul's attorney to formally notify them of the filings. Paul's voice on the phone was sharp and panicked. He threatened consequences and tried to intimidate Amelia personally. She remained calm and forwarded his threats directly to Marcus. Marcus added the threats to the legal record, ensuring they could not be ignored. Amelia watched the court system take control, knowing every step was documented. She focused on logistics next, tracking every asset listed in her research. She compiled a list of bank accounts, properties, and investments linked to the estate. Each item was backed by documentation, timestamps, and memos. Marcus prepared a formal letter to the judge, summarizing all evidence. Amelia double-checked the chronology of every transaction and recorded incident. The goal was simple: block any attempt to hide or move assets before the court ruled. She coordinated with the court clerk to confirm all documents were officially filed. Amelia also gathered witness statements from neighbors who had observed Paul's behavior. Each statement was short, factual, and corroborated the assault recording. By afternoon, the asset freeze motion had been officially received. The court acknowledged receipt and scheduled a preliminary hearing. Amelia felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing her strategy was working. She resisted the urge to contact Paul or Ethan directly. Every interaction would be mediated through lawyers to maintain a clear record. She reviewed her notes, planning the next legal steps after the hearing. The estate would remain frozen until the court could verify all transactions. Amelia knew the process would take time, but believed in its inevitability. She summarized all new evidence in a secure folder labeled Phase 5, Court Submission. Every document, every email, every social post was time-stamped and backed up. By evening, Marcus confirmed the filing was complete and ready for court review. Amelia sat back, letting herself breathe for the first time in days. She felt the weight of years of manipulation finally lifting. The legal system was now a tool she wielded with precision and confidence. Paul and Ethan could no longer hide. The inheritance would be accounted for properly. Justice was no longer an abstract concept. It was unfolding step by step, exactly as she had planned. Amelia allowed herself a small, steady smile. The family audit had reached its most powerful phase, and she would see it through to the very end. Amelia returned home after the court filings, her mind still sharp with purpose. Her phone rang once, then again, displaying her mother's name. She answered, hearing sobs on the other end. Her mother begged her to stop, to let the matter rest. Amelia listened quietly, letting the tears speak for a lifetime of silence. She replied with a calm, firm voice. "I cannot undo what has been done, Mother. I can only make it right." Her mother pleaded, but Amelia held her ground. She knew any compromise now would erase the justice she had fought to secure. The next call was from Ethan, voice trembling with panic. He begged her to intervene, to call off the lawyers, to settle privately. Amelia remained silent, letting the weight of the law speak louder than words. Ethan's desperation was palpable, but she had learned long ago that fear was not a negotiation tool. She reviewed the evidence once more, ensuring nothing could be contested. Each document, each recording, each bank confirmation was in place. She maintained strict boundaries, communicating only through Marcus. No direct confrontation, no emotional engagement, no room for manipulation. She prepared for the next court hearing, confirming all motions were correctly filed. The judge had scheduled Paul and Ethan to appear, with assets frozen until review. Amelia felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing she had anticipated every move. She spent the evening reviewing social media, cross-referencing transactions. Every post, every purchase, every display of wealth was documented. Her meticulous records would prevent any attempt to hide assets. Marcus called to update her on the court's response and confirmed all parties had been notified. Amelia nodded silently, absorbing each detail with focus. She organized her notes into a chronological dossier for the judge. She reviewed audio files one last time, ensuring clarity and authenticity. Her strategic silence became a tool, forcing Paul and Ethan to react through official channels. No more lies, no more intimidation. She spent hours double-checking her legal backups, encrypting everything securely. Her role was clear: investigator, auditor, and executor of truth. She did not need validation or approval from the family she had once trusted. The court would now determine the outcome based on facts, evidence, and law. Amelia felt a profound sense of relief, mixed with anticipation. Years of manipulation and exploitation had led to this moment. She reviewed her personal ledger, noting each contribution and each injustice endured. She whispered to herself, reinforcing her resolve. This is not revenge. This is accountability. Her mother called again, softer this time, leaving messages of worry. Amelia did not respond. She knew engagement now could compromise the integrity of the case. The day of the hearing arrived, and Marcus briefed her on every procedural detail. She arrived early, dossier in hand, poised and focused. Paul and Ethan were present, their faces revealing the first cracks of fear. The court began by reviewing motions, confirming asset freezes, and scheduling full accounting. Amelia watched silently, feeling the power of preparation and evidence in action. Years of control, lies, and abuse were being dismantled, step by step. She realized family, as she had known it, no longer defined her. Her mission was complete, the audit of her family thorough and precise. She allowed herself a quiet smile, knowing the law now carried the truth. And for the first time, Amelia felt completely free. The court had ruled, freezing assets and demanding a full accounting from Paul and Ethan. Amelia sat in her apartment, dossier complete, evidence fully documented. She felt a calm she hadn't known in years. The family's deception had been exposed in full. No one could hide or manipulate the truth anymore. The inheritance would be divided fairly, as the law and the will demanded. Paul and Ethan were forced to appear, answer questions, and justify every transaction. Amelia watched from a distance, silent and composed. She no longer needed to argue or fight directly. The law carried her proof, her effort, and her justice forward. Her mother called, but Amelia stayed firm, refusing emotional entanglement. Ethan begged again, but her silence was the strongest reply. Years of manipulation, threats, and control had ended. Amelia realized the family she had believed in never truly existed. She had acted with precision, evidence, and strategy, not emotion. The family audit was complete, and justice had been served. She allowed herself a quiet smile, feeling relief and closure. No revenge, no anger, only clarity and truth. The estate would follow the rightful course, nothing more to do. Amelia turned off her laptop, the dossier closed. Her life could finally move forward on her own terms. Freedom, finally, was hers.